Sup flappers, welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna answer all these questions. All right, oh, how is Ayaka doing in 2.6? Is Aya still good? Is there anything new about Ayaka? Should I make any changes to Ayaka? Should I get consolations on Ayaka if I have Ganyu? Okay, all right, I get it. This character is insanely good and a lot of people have missed her on her first banner, and once again she's back and between a couple potentially tight banner reruns as well. However, this is probably one of the better opportunities for you to snag up currently what most people would regard as the best DPS unit in the entire game, just due to her multipliers. If you guys don't understand why people give this character so much praise in this video, I'll try to cover as many of the reasons possible and at the same time not overhype you guys and oversell this character, because you know, no character is perfect, and if this character doesn't suit your playstyle, I'll make sure to let you know throughout the video. All right, with that said, let's get right into it. There's quite a bit to cover here, don't want to take up too much of your time. First and foremost, let's talk about Ayaka's DPS potential. Currently her ceiling is incredibly high, and once again that's just because of her burst scaling percentage. Yes, it's not because of her charge attacks, not because of her fancy normal attacks, and it's not because she has some insane sort of hidden reaction. It's simply all in the burst scaling. Now, if you guys know or have seen people demonstrate Ayaka, you would realize that this burst skill is more than meets the eye. All right, if you play Ayaka in any team that's not a freeze team, it's almost impossible to hit the entirety of the burst skill. And I'm saying that fully knowing people in the comments are going to be like, oh, just because you don't know how to play the character. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. What artifacts are you going to be running on this character? Blizzard Stray, right? So with Blizzard Stray, you of course want to prioritize in a freeze team. So if you're playing her in a freeze team, that's the single best way for you to capitalize on a potential full burst hit. And there are many ways Hoyoverse can make this character less fluid to use in the future. However, so far they've never really seemed to pose enough of a threat in any scenario for Ayaka to feel inadequate. So when it comes to her DPS potential as well as her DPS opportunities, right now it seems like the sky's the limit. The only downside to Ayaka and her DPS is when you're running into bosses, and a little more mobile bosses for that matter, you can't freeze them. Although yeah, the bosses will be able to stop the progression of your burst skill. What I mean by that is your burst will not continue to move forward because the boss essentially will block it, but more mobile bosses will make it difficult for you to time that burst window, and it's not something that you can really control as it's AI, so you have to be able to take that risk. Most of the time when I have to deal with some of these bosses, I prefer not to use Ayaka, just because you're not getting her full potential through her artifacts either. What ends up happening is you're in a way losing quite a bit of stats just by playing Ayaka in a boss scenario. There are many characters in the game that even 4 stars work better for these single target scenarios, so in a sense it is one of her bigger weaknesses, but I'm sure most of you already know that. So let's move on to a direct comparison between Ayaka and Ganyu, because this is the one that I think most people are asking me. A lot of people are asking me, especially with Ganyu already having her rerun, saying, well, Walrus, I already have Ganyu, and some people say I have Ganyu C1, right? At this point, is it even worth it for me to pick up an Ayaka? And my easy answer for you is going to be no, right? I'm going to tell you straight up, if you already have Ganyu and you have her very well built and invested into, it's not necessarily that worth it for you to pick up Ayaka, because you essentially are telling me I have an insane DPS unit already taken care of in the same element. Will I need a second one? But if you're here for the longer answer, I'm gonna tell you there is a scenario where Ayaka makes sense for you to pick up, and that is if you're building a proper cryo-centric DPS team that's focused around a double carry scenario with Shinhe as the support. Without this particular scenario, it just feels wrong for me to tell you, especially if you're a low spender of free-to-play, to now double down on Ayaka as well, or in a way to somehow convince you that you should replace Ganyu with Ayaka because Ganyu somehow is inadequate, because that's not the truth, right? However, if you already have Shinhe, right, you're hyper invested into this whole cryo shenanigans thing, there is a scenario where picking up Ayaka is going to bolster your cryo damage output, and it's just going to be a ton of fun. I'm not going to say it's necessary, but it's incredibly fun to run Ganyu Ayaka in a freeze team coupled with Shinhe, insanely overbuffed cryo team because they just complement each other so well. In a way, they're designed to cover for each other's differences. I'm not going to use the word weakness because people are like, oh, they had... No, they're designed to cover each other's differences. And that's saying a lot for both of these characters. But if you already have Ganyu and you're hoping that I was going to tell you or feed into your desire for also polling on Ayaka, unfortunately, I don't recommend it if you're a low spender or free-to-play player. I do think Primo Gems are probably better used elsewhere. Let's say you don't have Kazuha, maybe pick that up, or you're looking to build a second alternative DPS team, maybe look into that. I know a lot of people are going to be very upset saying like, how is there a scenario where you do not recommend Ayaka? I'm going to say it, right? Ayaka is not the end all be all. She's amazing, but she definitely have downsides. I found that I've retried certain Abyss rooms many times because Ayaka's cryo does not feel consistent enough for herself to freeze the enemies. And we'll talk about this later in the video. But right now, I just want you to understand Ganyu in an Ayaka team serves more as a support DPS while Ayaka is the main DPS if they're combined into the same team, because Ganyu's cryo application is more consistent than Ayaka's. And what Ganyu essentially accomplishes is give a very consistent freeze in the scenario where Ayaka needs to spend like 23 years posing for her Kamisato Ryu, right? And I can't tell you how much of a difference it has made. And in a way, you guys could replace someone like Ganyu with the Rosaria. And that's talking about team compositions. We'll also talk about that a little bit later, because I want you guys to really understand where I'm coming from here. I'm not saying these two characters somehow has to one-up each other. I'm saying, yes, they work well together, but that is such an over investment into a singular area of the game, where if you're all in for cryo, that's why I said if you have Shinhe already invested, you're ready to go for it, buddy. But if you don't, there are definitely better options out there. Following this up, we have to talk about some team variations, because Ayaka right now, I want to say, because she is so free centric, she has so many different team variations: 4 stars, 5 stars, cheap teams, expensive teams, buffing teams. She is in a position where the meta for her and compositions are very much matured to a point where someone like Shinhe is designed to facilitate cryo carries. And I just think HoYoverse has cryo figured out to the point where they're okay releasing characters such as Shinhe to continue pushing the upper limits for these team comps. Picking up Ayaka, not only does she have an insanely high ceiling by herself, you can further increase that ceiling with someone like Shinhe, and of course characters like Kazuha, characters like Sucrose, Venti with Viridescence. It just goes to say that this character has a lot of ways to be played, albeit it's all freeze, right? No matter where you go, how you look at it, it's all freeze. I made a video talking about people like memeing saying like Superconduct Ayaka is also doable if you know what you're doing. Yes, of course, you can play Crystallize Ayaka either, right? That's meta if you want it to be. I'm just saying, for the most part, people are going to be stuck playing freeze teams with Ayaka. It's just different freeze teams, right? You can like Barbara, Mona with Prototype Amber, you can do Kokomi, you can do Xingqiu, you can do Ayato if you want as well. There's just so many different ways to get a solid freeze team going together nowadays that it's almost inexcusable to not have a somewhat functioning team with Ayaka. And let me tell you, as long as you have freeze, Ayaka is going to hit like an absolute truck. So that is one of the reasons why I think Ayaka is so loved by the community, is that she's a very easy and accessible character, even for a free to play, even for a newer player. Like, you started the game 2 days ago, you can pick up Ayaka and you can probably get some of the most insane value by piecing her together with like a Barbara and Kaya. Holy smokes, right? It's just coming right out of the gates. This character is already amazing, with percentage scalings that rival some entire team's damage output. Granted, I did say that her burst skill is not going to be a surefire thing every single time with 100% consistency. Even in a freeze scenario, I have situations where, yeah, the mobs are frozen in place, but the burst still continues going if you're not hitting a boss, right? And then, you know, eventually it kind of just floats away. And once in a blue moon, you'll get a full burst hit, but most of the time you feel like that damage is either excessive or they're frozen and then it kind of just floats away, or they're not frozen and then they're getting hit in really weird directions. Like the burst is going straight, but then somehow the monsters are like falling perpendicular backwards to your burst. I'm sure Ayaka players, comment down below if that's ever happened to you. It's incredibly annoying, but it does happen with Ayaka. There's a lot of emphasis put on freeze. If you don't have enemies frozen, prepare for them to defy the laws of physics and move in ways that it's not meant to be. That being said, I don't want to oversell this character. I don't want to undersell this character. She's definitely one of the best DPS in the game. Some people would have her ranked 1. I would argue if she is 100% the best, because for me, when I talk about DPS, I talk about consistency as well. So in a way, I do have my gripes with her, but definitely know that if you pick this character up, she is going to serve you incredibly well, and probably DPS wise, you're not going to find somebody more suitable to carry you through the game. There are definitely things that you should look out for when playing this character. I have made an entire video talking about it, so if you want to check that out, right, I'll throw up a card on screen somewhere for you to go there. With that said, thank you guys for watching. I wish you guys luck on Ayaka, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Until then, urge y'all to stay safe, and peace.